You believe your thoughts are your own. Your decisions are your own. Your reactions are your own. But what if most of what you think, feel, and decide has already been shaped by forces you never chose and never examined? Today we combine three of the most powerful forces in human psychology: childhood programming, social influence, and behavioral triggers, to show you exactly how your mind is being shaped, and how to take back control. Part 1. The Childhood Blueprint, where everything begins. Between the ages of 0 and 7, your brain is in a state called theta brainwave dominance, essentially a hypnotic state. Whatever you experience in these years gets downloaded directly into your subconscious without a filter. The messages you received, the emotions you witnessed, the behaviors you were rewarded and punished for, all of it installed as core programming before you were old enough to question whether any of it was true. Fast forward 30 years, you're in a meeting, your boss gives you critical feedback, and you feel something disproportionate to the situation: shame, rage, shutdown. That reaction, it's not coming from the meeting. It's coming from a moment in your childhood that felt exactly the same. You were told you were too sensitive. You learned to suppress emotion. If you were punished for speaking up, you learned silence is safety. If you were praised only for achievement, you learned your worth is conditional. These are not personality traits. They are survival adaptations that outlived their usefulness. The moment you see the program, you can begin to question it. Not blame your parents, not live as a victim of your past, but consciously choose which programs to keep and which ones to rewrite. The rewrite is not denial. It is not pretending the past didn't happen. It is the adult you, with full awareness, choosing a new operating system. One you actually chose, one that serves who you want to become. Part 2. How the people around you are shaping your behavior, right now without you realizing. Humans are the most socially influenced species on Earth. We don't just live in groups. We become our groups. The behaviors, beliefs, and emotional patterns of the people around you seep into you through a process called social osmosis. Neuroscientists discovered mirror neurons, brain cells that fire when you observe someone else's actions or emotions. When someone near you is anxious, your brain literally begins to replicate that anxiety. When someone is calm, your nervous system begins to calm too. You are neurologically absorbing the emotional states of everyone around you. This is why Jim Rohn's famous observation is not motivational fluff. It is neuroscience. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not metaphorically, literally. Their habits, their beliefs, their emotional patterns, all gradually becoming yours. Approval withholding. When someone gives you warmth and connection only when you behave in certain ways, and withdraws it when you don't, your brain learns to perform for their approval, even as an adult, even when you don't realize it's happening. The guilt trip. One of the most common and least recognized forms of behavioral control. It works because humans are wired for social harmony. Making someone feel guilty activates the same brain regions as physical pain, and the fastest way to stop the pain is to comply. The silent treatment. Withdrawal of communication as punishment. This triggers primal abandonment fear in the human brain, because for our ancestors, being excluded from the group meant death. The person receiving it will do almost anything to restore connection. Intermittent reinforcement. The most psychologically powerful behavioral control mechanism that exists. When reward comes randomly, sometimes warmth, sometimes coldness, no predictable pattern, the brain becomes obsessed with figuring out how to get the reward. It creates the same neurological addiction as a slot machine. Constant comparison. When someone consistently measures you against others, your self-worth becomes external and relative. You stop asking, "Am I living well?" and start asking, "Am I better than them?" Your entire motivation system gets hijacked by someone else's measuring stick. The defense against all of these is the same. The moment you can name what's happening. This is guilt being used to control me. You create a gap between the trigger and your response. In that gap is your freedom. In that gap is genuine choice. Part 3. The psychological triggers already inside your own mind that make you predictable, manipulable, and sometimes your own worst enemy. Trigger 1. Confirmation bias. Your brain does not seek truth. It seeks confirmation of what it already believes. It filters reality, highlighting evidence that agrees with your existing worldview and dismissing everything that challenges it. If you believe money is hard to make, Your brain notices every obstacle and dismisses every opportunity. If you believe people are fundamentally selfish, you see selfishness everywhere and interpret generosity with suspicion. Your beliefs literally change what you see. Trigger 2. Negativity bias. Your brain is not neutral. It is hardwired to give far more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. One criticism hits harder than 10 compliments. One bad day feels more significant than a week of good ones. This is not a flaw. It's an ancient survival feature. For our ancestors, overlooking a threat could mean death. Overlooking a piece of good news, no consequence. So the brain evolved to be 3 times more sensitive to negative information than positive. You're not pessimistic, you're prehistoric. Working with your negativity bias means deliberately collecting positive evidence. Not toxic positivity, but conscious counterbalancing. 3 things that went well today. 1 person who showed up for you. 1 thing your body did right. You are manually rebalancing a scale that evolution tilted. Trigger 3. The fundamental attribution error. When other people behave badly, we attribute it to their character. They're a bad person. When we behave badly, we attribute it to our circumstances. I was having a terrible day. We judge others by their actions and ourselves by our intentions. This error destroys relationships, creates workplace conflicts, and keeps us locked in judgments that aren't true. The antidote is the simplest question in human psychology. What else could this mean? What context might I be missing? The sunk cost fallacy. You stay in the bad relationship because you've already invested years. You keep the failing business because you've already put in $50,000. You finish the terrible book because you're already on page 200. The sunk cost is gone. It cannot be recovered by staying longer. The only question that matters is, if I were starting fresh today, would I choose this? If the answer is no, the rational choice is to leave. The past cannot be saved by sacrificing the future. Trigger 5. The status quo bias. Your brain has a deep preference for the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. Change requires mental energy. The unknown triggers threat responses. So your brain will always generate reasons to stay where you are, even when staying is clearly worse than changing. This is why people stay in jobs they hate for years, relationships that drain them for decades, habits that are clearly destructive for a lifetime. The familiar pain feels safer than the unfamiliar possibility. Recognizing this bias is the first step to overriding it. Trigger 6. Social comparison bias. Your brain constantly evaluates your status relative to others. Not relative to your own potential or your own past, relative to whoever you're comparing yourself to right now. And in the age of social media, you are comparing yourself to the carefully curated highlights of millions of people simultaneously. The antidote is to change who you compare yourself to. The only meaningful comparison is you versus you. Your current self versus your past self. Your actual progress versus your potential. Everything else is noise designed to keep you feeling behind. Now let's bring all 3 together, because this is where it gets powerful. Your childhood programming created your default beliefs about yourself and the world. The people around you reinforce or challenge those beliefs daily. And your psychological biases filter everything you experience to confirm what you already believe. It's a closed loop, unless you deliberately break it open. Breaking the loop requires 3 things. First, awareness. Seeing the program as it runs. Second, the pause, creating even a few seconds between the trigger and your response. Actively selecting a response that aligns with who you want to be, not who you were programmed to be. The practice is called metacognition, thinking about your thinking, observing your reactions with curiosity rather than judgment. Interesting. I'm feeling defensive right now. That's the old program. The moment you can observe it, you're no longer inside it. Daily reflection is not self-indulgence. It is the most powerful tool for psychological freedom available to you. 5 minutes in the morning asking, what beliefs am I carrying into today? 5 minutes in the evening asking, which programs ran today? What do I want to run tomorrow? 6 mindset shifts that change everything once you see how your mind has been shaped. Shift 1. From this is just who I am to this is who I was programmed to be, and I can choose differently. Your personality is not fixed. It is a collection of learned responses, and learned responses can be unlearned. Shift 2. From "they made me feel this way" to "my feeling is my response, and I own my responses." Between stimulus and response is space. In that space is your power. No one can make you feel anything without your participation. Shift 3. From "I need their approval" to "I need my own alignment." When you stop performing for external validation and start measuring yourself against your own values, you become psychologically uncontrollable, and that terrifies people who've always controlled you through approval. Shift 4. From "I can't help how I react" to "my reactions are habits, and habits can be changed." Every reaction you have is a neural pathway that was built through repetition, and every time you choose a different response, you begin building a new pathway. Shift 5. From "the past defines me" to "the past informed me, my present choices define me." Your history is the raw material. What you build with it is entirely up to you. Victims are defined by what happened to them. Builders are defined by what they chose to do next. From "other people's behavior is about me" to "other people's behavior is almost never about me." How someone treats you is a reflection of their own programming, their own pain, their own unresolved patterns. Taking it personally gives them power they were never meant to have. Here is the daily practice that makes all of this real, not just intellectual understanding. Morning, 3 questions. What belief am I carrying into today? What trigger might I face, and how do I want to respond? Who do I choose to be today? Not who I was programmed to be, who I am choosing to become. Evening, 3 reflections. Which programs ran today? Where did I see my childhood blueprint or my biases at work? Where did I react instead of respond? And what would I choose differently if that moment came again? This practice, done consistently, does something extraordinary over time. The invisible becomes visible. The automatic becomes chosen. The reactive becomes deliberate. You stop being run by programs you never chose and start living from values you actually believe in. The same life, the same people, the same triggers, but you, completely different. Not because the world changed, because you can finally see it clearly. Your childhood shaped your defaults. The people around you reinforce or challenge them. Your psychological biases filter everything. And now, awareness is the light that makes all of it visible. And what is visible can be changed. You cannot change what you cannot see, but you can see clearly now, and that changes everything. Subscribe to Mind Mastery. Drop a comment which part hit you hardest. The childhood blueprint, the social influence, or the triggers inside your own mind. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.